You're watching the Big 12 on ESPN. Tonight, the top two offenses in the conference squaring off from the Farrell Center in Waco, Texas. It's the #2 undefeated Baylor Bears hosting the Oklahoma Sooners. Alongside Chris Spatola, I'm Rich Hollenberg. The Waco, Texas native Baylor Bears, undefeated on the season, wearing their home gold uniforms, trying to remain that way against the surprisingly effective offense of the Oklahoma Sooners. It's Oklahoma in their crimson and cream controlling the opening tip. Queth, the big man, first shot of the game off the mark, and it's rebounded by Vital. And thanks for tuning in. We're in Waco, Texas, where the Baylor Bears have jumped out to a quick 3-0 lead, courtesy of a MaCio Teague three-pointer. The second-ranked, undefeated Baylor Bears at 9-0, coming in looking to remain undefeated against 6-2 Oklahoma, the home Big 12 opener for the Baylor Bears, and they get an offensive foul drawn on Oklahoma, so one quick turnover for the Sooners. Alongside Chris Spatola, I'm Rich Hollenberg. Chris, Scott Drew has authored one of the most remarkable turnarounds in college basketball history. Now in his 18th season as Baylor's head coach, 371 wins from a program that was moribund when he took it over, and now they're consistently a top 25 team.
Well, and they're very old this year, Rich, and they've got one of the most potent offenses in the country. Shoot a lot of threes, make them at a high percentage, have three outstanding ball handlers, play creators, guys who break down the defense. A lot of fun to watch this version of Baylor.
Brady Manick off the mark on his first three. He's 5 for his last 21 from beyond the arc. Here's Flo Thamba getting a touch in the paint. Chris, there are so many things that Baylor does well. What impresses you most about this Bears squad?
Well, when they start freelancing, you know, at the end of possessions, they'll get in, you know, they want to run, they'll push. If there's nothing there, they run a lot of ball screen stuff, Rich, but they are at their best. And Lon Kruger telling us this yesterday, they are at their best when they just start freewheeling, and Scott Drew allows those guys a lot of freedom to make plays. They can all three of those guards could break you down off the dribble. They are a high assist team and a really efficient offense.
There's nothing that they don't do well. They offensive rebound well. That's the specialty of Mark Vital, number 11 in gold, but that time it'll go over to the Oklahoma Sooners. These are two veteran clubs in the Big 12. Both start upperclassmen in their starting 5. They are well balanced. Austin Reeves, Alondis Williams, Brady Manick, and Kirk Queth, all seniors for Lon Kruger's Sooners. Inside, Queth, and he's blocked by Thamba.
He's got to finish that. Yeah, he played really well their game the other day against West Virginia. Was not good in the game before that against Texas Tech. Consistency has been an issue. At his size and athleticism, you got to finish that.
Another whistle stops play with 17:28 to go in a 5-0 Baylor lead. This Baylor starting 5, they don't start 4 seniors, but they start all upperclassmen, and there are 4 returning all Big 12 selections from last year's club, Chris, that ended up going 26-4 and had a 23-game win streak at one point last year.
Well, getting Jared Butler back was the first element to Baylor being really good again this year. And as you said, you know, they bring back a lot of guys from that team, had a lot of success. MaCio Teague, not a senior, but he's a redshirt junior. Davion Mitchell is, of course, coming from Auburn. So they have some guys who have been around the block.
There's the first bucket of the game for Oklahoma. They're in the scoring column.
Both of these offenses are good. We've talked about Baylor. These are the 2 highest scoring offenses in the Big 12. They're the 2 highest assist offenses in the Big 12. Very unselfish teams and really good scorers.
Here's Teague. Speaking of scoring, he's got an early 5. He's just a tick off the team lead. Jared Butler leads this team with 16 a game. Teague coming in averaging 15.9. There's Austin Reeves. We'll be talking about him a lot throughout this game. Number 12 in crimson, and there's number 12 in gold. That's going to be a matchup we're going to be spending a lot of time watching, and they're both stat sheet stuffers, Chris.
Jared Butler is what college basketball is all about. He is an outstanding young man, high character, and has bought into becoming better in college basketball. He's unpacked his bags at Baylor. He tested the NBA process last year, made the right decision to come back. He's a winner. He's a great kid, an outstanding player. He's what college basketball is all about.
Preseason All-American, number 12 in gold, Jared Butler. Doesn't need to score to be effective. You could say that about every one of these Baylor Bears, especially the guard play. There's Butler, skips it over. Now Davion Mitchell in and out on the 3 ball. It goes out of bounds, and it'll stay Baylor basketball. Your officials tonight, Kip Kissinger, Raiden Natili, and Keith Kimball.
That last shot, it doesn't go down, Rich, but that is a Baylor possession where you get the pick and roll. Butler finds the skip. He's reading the tag guy. Who's helping on the roller? Then you get an extra pass, and here they go again. They attempt 25 threes a game. They make 11, and the majority of them, Rich, are open threes because of how the ball moves.
Manek off the mark. He's 0 for 3 from deep so far in this game. Not a good sign for Lon Kruger. Vital comes storming through the lane, and a couple of players are down, including Mark Vital. A violent collision, and we have a timeout on the floor with Baylor leading 10-2 with 15:42 to go. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Phillips 66, proud sponsor of Big 12 basketball. Well, Baylor jumps out to an early lead, 10-2 over the Oklahoma Sooners. Brady Manek took the worst of a collision between he and Mark Vital, and now Brady is on the sidelines getting 10-2 by the training staff. Looked like he might have gotten the wind knocked out of him, but now they're checking for a couple of loose chiclets as well, Chris.
It was a violent collision, Rich. I mean, this was Mark Vital. He's no soft body now, and he just comes barreling down the lane. And give Manek a lot of credit. I mean, he's a tough dude trying to make a play, but he certainly takes the worst for it. He trips over his teammate there, and you can see he does nail his head on the landing.
Brady Manek making his 100th career start as an Oklahoma Sooner. Mark Vital on the line misses the first free throw, playing in his 106th game for the Baylor Bears. 2 veterans in the Big 12. And Vital goes 1 for 2, giving Baylor a 9-point lead. Big leads are nothing new for these Baylor Bears. They have led and won by 10 or more points in all 9 of their games so far this season. Davion Harmon hits the deck. Jalen Hill comes away with it. Here's Harmon, blocked from behind. They get it back, and it rolls off the rim. Matt Meyer checking in for Scott Drew has the rebound. Meyer's a high-volume shooter when he gets the chance. And Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua with his first bucket. They call him Everyday John. You could see why, Chris.
What a pickup he was. Transfer from UNLV, 3rd in the Big 12 in rebounding. He's an outstanding lob catcher, really good finisher around the rim. He's perfect, a perfect complement to these guards.
Let's take a look at that last assist from Matthew Meyer. This is something that Baylor does almost as well as anybody in the country.
Well, their bigs are excellent screeners. It starts there. They're unselfish screeners. They understand their role in this offense, And then those guards, Meyer included, Flagler when he comes in, they are all play creators, meaning they can break down a defense. And then they have a lot of shot makers. I mean, half of the assists is you got to put the ball through the basket, and they certainly have guys who can do that.
And that's the first turnover of the night for the Baylor Bears. It's an embarrassment of riches for Scott Drew coming off that 26-4 year last year. They've only gotten better this year. These are national ranks, not in the Big 12. This is all across the country in college basketball, Chris. They are one of, if not the best teams in basketball.
20 assists a game is an obscene number. It's an obscene number. Now, look, their schedule, and, you know, part of it not of their doing. They were going to play Gonzaga. That game was called off. Their schedule hasn't been all that tough. I mean, you're talking in the lower 200s in terms of strength of schedule nationally. So, you know, those numbers will probably go down as they get deeper into Big 12 play. But they're not going to go much deeper. I mean, that's who this team is. And by the way, we haven't even talked about their defense yet. They get after you. Their ball pressure is outstanding. We know they rebound the ball. They are a two-way team.
Well, they are knocking down shots every time down the floor. Same can't be said for Oklahoma, who is 1 for 9 so far. But Baylor has been hot. Adam Flagler checks in and promptly knocks down another 3-ball. It's all Baylor Bears in the first 6.5 minutes.
As we said, 20 assists a game, second nationally, tops in the Big 12 for the Baylor Bears. And it starts with their offensive actions. A lot of pick and roll stuff that they run, but it's these play creators, these guys who can get into that paint, draw two defenders, and then that's where they start sharing the basketball. And a lot of times, Rich, mature teams are better passing teams because they understand they need each other in order to win. When you have ball guys who can get into that paint, break down a defense, and then shot makers, guys who can put that ball in from the perimeter or lob catchers, you're going to average a lot of assists.
They share the sugar, and they are fierce on defense. You saw just a moment ago, Jared Butler had the block on the outside shot. It's going to stay Oklahoma basketball. These are a connected group. They played together a long time, especially last season into this season. They play for each other. All those cliches that with other teams are cliches, they are legitimate with this Baylor club. Here's Flagler, the transfer from Presbyterian. He got better last year being on the practice team, going up against Butler and MaCio Teague. Tchamwa Tchatchoua traveled with the basketball. That's another turnover for Baylor, their second this evening.
You know, you bring up an interesting point, Rich, about Flagler and Tchatchoua's the same way. Both those guys sat out last year. And, you know, they're putting this new rule in where you get a one-time transfer, you can play immediately. And that's fine, and I think that's how it should be. But just because it's the new rule doesn't mean every guy should do it. I think there's a lot to be said about, you know, you're transferring in most cases for a reason. You weren't playing enough, situation wasn't right. You look at guys in this game, Flagler and Tchatchoua being good examples, they got better. They grew, they became older, they matured. Everybody is in such a race now. Everybody wants the clock to go so quickly for them. And with this new rule coming in and guys being able to play right away, that's fine, I get it. But there's a lot to be said about sitting out, practicing all year, watching from the sideline, adapting to a new culture. And those guys are better. Flagler is a better player this year than he would have been if he had played right away coming from Presbyterian.
Yeah, and Chris, you know this, having covered this team for the last few years. This is nothing new for the Baylor Bears because Scott Drew's made a habit of getting guys to convince them to redshirt, sit out a year, and then come back better for it. You saw Austin Reeves there with his first 2 of the game, his first field goal attempt of the game. Another turnover. Good defense by the Sooners. Elijah Harkless goes down and draws the foul. Here's Austin Reeves.
He is their leading scorer, Austin Reeves, and we'll see what happens to Brady Manick. Without him, they're going to need this guy to have a big night. Nice little move there, a little whoopsie-doo with the finger roll.
The number 2 Baylor Bears, one of just 3 undefeated teams remaining in the top 25. They have a 10-point lead over Oklahoma. From our home to yours, Chris Spatola in North Carolina. I'm Rich Hollenberg in Florida. The Baylor Bears opening up the home portion of their Big 12 Conference regular season play in Waco, Texas. And we already talked about Jared Butler, preseason All-American. He's a stat sheet stuffer for Baylor. But Oklahoma has their own stat sheet stuffer in Austin Reeves.
Yeah, the fifth-year senior transfer from Wichita State, Rich, he's been outstanding for this Oklahoma team. And I think, you know, it becomes very limiting to look at his shooting percentage. He hasn't shot it well from 3. He came from Wichita State with a reputation as a shooter. But he leads them in points. He leads them in assists. He leads them in rebounding. I mean, he leads them in almost every important statistical category. He's running the show for them. He's been very good. Now, he does have to start to shoot the ball a little bit better, but when you have all of that responsibility, it's going to get into your shooting percentage a little bit. I've been there. So you just got to be patient with him. But he's having a great year, and you can't be so locked in on the fact that he's not shooting the 3 at as high a percentage as I think a lot of folks expected.
Yeah, only 26% from three-point range, but all the other numbers are sterling for Reeves. Now Reeves gives it up. Jumper from the foul line, no good, and Meyer has the rebound and brings it up for Baylor. Here's Flagler, and he's off the mark. A rare miss for Baylor and their offense in the early going.
See how wide open the shot was. I mean, that's the thing that pops off the screen with Baylor, and to an extent, Oklahoma. This is 1 and 2 in the Big 12 in assists. And one of the reasons is they get open shots. Just count the number of open shots both these teams get.
Now it'll be Oklahoma's ball out of bounds under their own basket. Reeves to trigger the inbounds. And here's Umoja Gibson. First time we're talking about number 2 in Crimson, and we'll have more on him coming up. Local product out of Waco, now playing for the Sooners. Meyer calls his own number and knocks it down. Matthew Meyer's first points of the night.
That is a Matthew Meyer shot, a contested fall-away 3. A guy who has gone back and forth between eye-popping potential and a mistake waiting to happen, or at least a bad shot waiting to happen. What a tough shot.
Another block by the Baylor defense. They are up in the jerseys of the Sooners. Reeves off the mark, and Butler clears from the weak side. 13-point lead, dominating in the first half of this first half for Butler, or for Baylor, and they turn it over there. Quick shot from Gibson, and he gets fouled on the 3, and Umoja Gibson will go to the line.
Well, you could tell the scouting report after the game Umoja Gibson just had against West Virginia. You could tell there are no 3s. We are not allowing Gibson to get any 3s. Look at that shooting percentage. Last 5 games, shooting 57%. That's what he's here to do. It's what he did at North Texas. He can really stroke it.
He's the Big 12 Player of the Week, coming off that 29-point outburst against West Virginia. And a good free throw shooter, too. Hasn't gone to the line much this year. Was 3 for 5 coming in, but he cans his first 2, and he'll have a 3rd attempt now. Good news for Oklahoma. Brady Manick has checked back in. If you missed it, he had a one-sided collision with Mark Vital, who was driving to the hole. Brady tried to stop his charge and ended up hitting the deck and getting a faceful of Mark Vital.
Well, Vital's body type doesn't quite take collisions as badly as other body types.
I would agree with you on that. And there's another Baylor bucket. Davion Mitchell has 4 points. MaCio Teague leads the scorers with 8. That shot off the mark. And here comes Butler. Gives it up. Vital. And a traveling violation. Some unforced errors by the Bears. A little bit sloppy with the basketball. Their 6th turnover tonight. Here's Gibson, a threat to shoot it from any range. And he's fouled again on the pull-up jumper. Well, tomorrow night, it's the 30th annual Home Depot College Football Awards Show. This year, it's a 90-minute virtual special. Reese Davis will host, along with Holly Roy, 7 Eastern on ESPN and the app. And of course, we're expecting to see a healthy dose of Devontae Smith and his fellow Alabama Crimson Tide. Congratulations to him on taking home the Heisman Trophy Award just the other night.
The man's got some style. Looked like a little suede crimson jacket he's sporting there. Rich Hollenberg, a la your style.
Yeah, I left mine in the closet tonight, but usually, you know, if it wasn't a Wednesday night, I'd be breaking that out. MaCio Teague.
You've got a Hefner vibe to you.
I know you mean that in the most complimentary of ways. MaCio Teague, scorching hot. He's got 11, courtesy of 3 3-pointers already. Here's Gibson looking to get hot himself, but he's off the mark on 3. Baylor's never trailed in the opening stanza of this game against the Sooners. That one's stolen away. 7 Baylor turnovers. Reeves in transition with the 3-pointer, a chance to make it a 4-point play.
Well, it's the same kind of foul that they had on Gibson a few possessions before, trailing the play and fouling a 3-point shooter off a turnover. A sloppy exchange, not a good play from a veteran like MaCio Teague. A sloppy exchange, turnover on one end, and turnovers were an issue in their game against Iowa State the other day. And then a bad decision to foul, fouling another 3-point shooter.
Well, this is a team, Chris, that shoots the 3 fairly well. They're 3rd in the conference, 35+% from 3 as a team. That was their first 3-pointer of the night. They're 1 for 9, but now they have cut the lead to just 9. Here's Butler, straight line drive, and he's got an easy 2.
It's tough. The roller puts so much pressure on you because, you know, they have guys you can just throw it to the rim. And so as he rolls, he drags the defense with him, occupies attention, and then Butler, with a little hesitation, he's so good off the bounce. So good.
So many ways that Baylor can hurt you, but that was one of the main things Lon Kruger told us. They have to eliminate straight line drives. Easier said than done, certainly. Reeves off the mark, Vital another rebound. Mark Vital has 6 rebounds already tonight. Make that 7 after the last one. Here's Teague. He's had the hot hand in the first half. And another Baylor turnover. Harmon in the corner. Gibson off the mark. Manick can't get it to go, but Queth picks up the trash.
You know, Oklahoma's doing a good job not over-helping off of the perimeter. And so as Teague or some of these other ball handlers for Baylor are getting into the paint, they're trying to kick back out. And that pass isn't there because Oklahoma's staying home.
13 of the 17 Sooner points have come off of Baylor turnovers. Well, one of the best drivers in basketball is Jared Butler, Chris.
He is. Look at the roll, and then it's a man on an island, and that's tough against that guy, Jared Butler.
KC, just another night in college basketball. Alongside Chris Spatola, I'm Rich Hollenberg. The number 2 Baylor Bears, along with Michigan and Gonzaga, the only 3 undefeated top 25 teams in college basketball. And right now, Jared Butler and the Bears comfortably up by 9 with 7 minutes to go in the first half. But turnovers have been a little fly in the ointment for Scott Drew's Bears tonight, Chris.
Really why it's a 9-point game. Because those shooting percentages would tell you it should be something vastly different.
Baylor with a shot clock violation. And that means with a 3, all of a sudden, Oklahoma has a chance to make it a 2-possession ball game. Here's Moja Gibson, the lob to Kraft.
My goodness.
Talk about a momentum-changing play.
What a pass and what a catch. Pick and roll. You got that naked side over there, and he rolls hard, and what a catch with one hand by Kirkweth. My goodness.
And he just dunked right on top of Jonathan Chumwa-Chachua. So now the lead is just 5 for the Baylor Bears. Here's Butler, probing. And a tough make by Jared Butler, his second bucket of the night. Reeves had it knocked away. Here's Butler in the open court. An easy 2. And Jared Butler slipped and missed it. From at close range, Jared Butler might have been thinking about a dunk going in and ended up slipping and missing the easy one.
Well, he got the first dunk of his career in their last game. And I think you're right, Rich. I think he was thinking about putting that one down. Because, I mean, the layup he hit on the possession before in traffic was dynamite. He's got a wide open one there, and he pops a flat tire.
And the Baylor coaching staff just glad that Jared Butler's able to stay in the game, didn't hyperextend that knee. Reeves fouled on the way to the hoop, and Austin Reeves will go to the line and shoot 2. Well, tomorrow night on ESPN, some West Coast basketball. Number 1 Gonzaga highlighting this Thursday night college hoops doubleheader. They're taking on BYU at 8:30. Then in the Pac-12, Mick Cronin and UCLA will be in Tempe to take on Bob Hurley's Arizona State Sun Devils. That's at 10:30 Eastern. So we go from Midwest to West Coast.
Let me ask you this, Rich. I had a chance to talk to Arizona State's Remy Martin before the season. He's on the Naismith, preseason watch list. And his favorite musician is Bruno Mars. And we got into a very deep conversation about whether or not Bruno Mars is going to be a transcendent musician. Will we be talking about Bruno Mars in 30 years like we talk about, for example, Springsteen or somebody of that ilk? What do you say?
I don't know if he's got the sticking power. I mean, no one does of Bruce Springsteen. And we're talking about 50 years of great music. I don't think anybody has that, as Kirkweth follows another one with a slam. And all of a sudden, Scott Drew needs to talk it over and calls timeout. Baylor, their lead has been cut to 5 with 5 minutes to go in the first half.
I'll tell you what Bruno Mars can't do. He can't do this.
No, he cannot.
That is 2 big-time plays at the rim by Kirkweth. Coming off a really good game against West Virginia the other day. A guy who's being asked to do a lot more things he's never had to do, certainly offensively. And Lon Kruger telling us yesterday, we got to get him to put 2 games together. And I'll tell you what, he was really good on those last 2 finishes.
Well, we mentioned Gonzaga coming up tomorrow night. That game was moved to Thursday on ESPN. Earlier today, George Washington and UMass decided to postpone their game due to what was happening in our nation's capital. I'm sure those of you watching right now have at least seen or heard about it on Twitter. And Arkansas hangs on to defeat, or Tennessee hangs on to defeat Arkansas in the game that was on just prior to us, the number 9 Vols getting another win. What do you think Tennessee matches up with, say, Gonzaga and Baylor, who everyone feels are the consensus 2 best teams in college basketball?
Well, I think we need to pump the brakes on Tennessee. They're good. They are very good defensively. I'll tell you where they are not even in the same stratosphere yet, and that's offensively to the 2 teams that you just mentioned. Gonzaga is 1. There is nobody on their level right now. I think Baylor is a 1A. I mean, they certainly are offensively capable. We know they get after you defensively. Baylor is the team right now. When you watch Gonzaga, you're like, okay, they look alike. You know, there are a lot of similarities between those 2 teams, but they stand on an island by themselves.
You don't want to dwell on missed opportunities, but man, me, you, and everyone else in America was hoping and praying we would see that Gonzaga-Baylor game at some point this year. Who knows? Maybe we'll see it in Indianapolis in the NCAA tournament. Here's a look at your AP top 10. Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan. In that top 10, the only undefeated teams remain Villanova on Texas, making a statement with that win at Allen Fieldhouse. They're up to 4th in the country, and everyone who's a fan of Shaka Smart really happy to see him finally getting the performance from his team that he's been waiting 6 years to get. Williams off the mark. Here comes Teague, and he's fouled in the open court. We have 3:43 to go, our final media timeout of the first half. Baylor's extended their lead back to 9.
Teague, you're talking about guys who can play. What do you think, Spats?
I think you're right there, Coach. Yeah, I think the balance is what separates Gonzaga. I mean, obviously, their backcourt is really, really good. Baylor does not have a Drew Timme, but I'm with you. This backcourt is dynamite. They are a joy to watch, and they're 2-way players. I mean, this is not, as we said earlier, Rich, this is not just an offensive team. This is a complete basketball team that does have to take better care of the basketball.
Here's L.J. Cryer, the freshman from Katy, Texas, getting in the scoring column right off the bat. A 3 for him extends the lead to a dozen. Baylor led 16-2 at the outset of this game. Oklahoma fought their way back, forcing 9 Baylor turnovers and scoring 15 points off those turnovers. But now Baylor's found their offense again. Here's an Oklahoma team that returned 70% of their scoring. They've already had 5 different top scorers in a game this year, and they're only playing their 9th game of the season. So you talk about the balance and the offensive firepower and the age of the Baylor Bears. Well, Lon Kruger and the Oklahoma Sooners could lay claim to some of those things as well.
Well, they're going to have to figure out who can score the basketball for them. You know, if it's Davion Harmon's got to step up. He's got to be the guy. You know, Emoji Gibson coming off a 29-point game. Be nice to see if you're Lon Kruger, him knock down a couple shots. You know, with Brady Manick being hobbled here and Austin Reeves being hounded by these Baylor guards, somebody else on this Oklahoma team is going to have to make a shot.
3 minutes to go. It's a 10-point game, despite the fact that Oklahoma's shooting just 23% from the field. Here's Teague in traffic. No. Chumwa Chachua with the rebound, and he'll go to the line and shoot 2 after that offensive rebound.
He is an elite rebounder. This is a 2-handed rebound, just how they coach it. I mean, textbook, kept it above his head and goes right back up.
What was Scott Drew telling us yesterday about Chumwa Chachua? He does everything full speed, even in warm-ups. He's going full speed. They have to pump the brakes on Chumwa Chachua because he's going to wear himself out before the game starts.
He's one of those guys in shoot-around who's taking charges and like bumping you off his screens, and you're turning around and looking at him saying, yo, man, chill out. It's a walkthrough. We're in our street clothes. Take it easy, buddy.
Everyday John, the transfer from UNLV, taking the role of where Freddie Gillespie left off last year. Here's Reeves, had an open look, but it rims out. And Pryor chases it down. Now under 2.5 to go in the first half. Here's Davion Mitchell. Last year known more as his defensive specialist. This year he's added the offensive game to his repertoire. Meyer. That was a black hole. You knew that was going up, Spatola.
I love this dude. He is irrationally confident. I love Matthew Meyer. Now, look, I don't know if I'd want to coach him. That's where good on Scott Drew. He's done a great job with Meyer. But he does show some flashes of really good talent.
Well, he's got 9 points on 4 for 4 shooting so far. And Matt Meyer, the volume shooter, to put it lightly.
He does some things sometimes that'll make you pull your hair out, and then he does things like this. And that's a really good play. You know, and I joke. I mean, he's really a terrific young man and a guy who, over his time, I mean, if you go back and watch him as a freshman, he was running around a chicken with his head cut off. He has slowed down. He's more patient. But, I mean, look, at 6'9", you see the size, the physical gifts he has. Came in with a reputation as a shooter, and I think has learned how to become a basketball player. And you know, sometimes when you play with the guards that he's playing with, sometimes you feel like you're supposed to be doing what they do. You know, I think that was part of Davion Mitchell's issues last year when he struggled, is he saw Jared Butler and MaCio Teague and felt like, I need to be doing that. And I think, you know, Mitchell, Meyer, these guys are much more comfortable in their skin as they've gotten older. And that's where the dynamic has worked so far this year for Baylor.
Meyer, junior out of Austin, Texas, went to Westlake High School, usually known for their football output. Drew Brees, Nick Foles, both Westlake alums, and Matt Meyer showing they've got a basketball program as well. Teague was 1 for 2 from the line. The lead is now 15 for the Bears. MaCio Teague leading all scorers with a dozen. Here's Harmon in trouble. Got it off. And 1 and done again for the Sooners. Here's Teague in the open floor. And a foul's going to be called on Austin Reeves, and that'll send MaCio Teague back to the free throw line, an 86% free throw shooter.
Yeah, I think he just knocked it out of bounds.
Oh, so no foul called. It will be Baylor basketball. Butler, the preseason All-America, triggers the inbounds.
There it is.
The lob, an easy 2 out of bounds for the Baylor Bears.
They are so good at that, and these guards love throwing lobs to him. Jared Butler saying that you just got to put it in the vicinity, and Chachua's going to go get it.
All of a sudden, Baylor has extended its lead to 17. Here's Harmon, still can't connect. Way off the mark that time was Trey Phipps. And a miserable shooting half for the Oklahoma Sooners. 21% from the field. Shot clock and game clock virtually synced up. And it'll be last shot time for Baylor. Here's Butler guarded by Phipps. That's a little bit of a mismatch. See if Jared Butler takes advantage. A deep 3 off the mark. And time's going to run out in this first half from Waco. The Baylor Bears are 60-5 over their last 4 seasons when they lead at the half. And they've got a 17-point lead at halftime here, courtesy of a 55% shooting outburst by the Bears and holding Oklahoma to 21%. Now it's time for the E-Trade halftime report. KC, take it away. We're back with more Big 12 basketball on ESPN. The number 2 Baylor Bears with their largest lead of the game against the Oklahoma Sooners, 42-25, getting set to start the second half. From our home to yours, I'm Rich Hollenberg in Florida. Chris Spatola is at his home in North Carolina. And the Baylor Bears are impressing in their home debut in Big 12 play. If you haven't seen them play this year, the first 20 minutes, Chris, exhibit A of why they're one of the best teams in basketball.
No question. No question. If you're wondering, they're undefeated, number 2, how does that happen? That first half was the example of how that happens. I mean, they just dominated all facets. You know, they shot the ball well, 55% from the field. Their bench gave them a huge lift, 21 points off of their bench. The only real issue offensively, they turned it over a lot. But then defensively, Rich, I mean, they really got after Oklahoma, particularly on the perimeter. Oklahoma did not shoot it well. They're going to have to try to find some way to get some points.
Well, coming into this game, Baylor ranked 2nd in the nation in points per game, 92.9. They've scored 42 already in the first half. They're 1st in the nation in average margin of victory. They're up 17. They beat teams so far this year by an average of 30 points a game. They have the best three-point shooting team in the country. And as you talked about, they shot the three pretty darn well, 6 for 11 in the first half. And they share the sugar as well as anybody in basketball, 20-plus assists per game. And they're doing that as well against the Sooners so far. They tried a lot to open the second half, and it's picked off by Kirk Webb. So I guess the million-dollar question, Chris, is what does Oklahoma do coming out of the locker room to try to get back in this game?
Well, they have to work for better shots. The shot quality was not good. And part of that is, you know, Oklahoma, there you go. There's Austin Reeves. I mean, part of it is they couldn't get anything near the basket other than those lobs to Queth, which were the real highlight in the first half. The shot quality wasn't good. They got to get Brady Manick going. They got to, you know, they've got to find, if it's Devian Harmon or Moja Gibson, one of these other guys has to be a third scorer for them.
Manick had that tough spill a few minutes into the game in the first half, but has been on the floor later in the half and starting the second half for Lon Kruger. Here's Mitchell calling his own number with the shot clock winding down. The tap back, and it gets a fresh 20 seconds for the Baylor Bears. Here's Butler in the paint, swallowed up by the Sooners defense, and Jared Butler will go to the line and shoot a pair.
That's when they're the toughest. And if you're Lon Kruger, I mean, there's nothing in scouting you could have gone over there. There's nothing scripted on a play like that for Baylor. You know, younger teams, a lot of times you have to script movement. With this Baylor team, it's very hard to prepare for because they're great, and they have guys like this in Jared Butler, guys who can put it on the floor, good at reading the defense, taking what's there. Really tough.
Our Wooden Award midseason top 25 presented by Wendy's. You see Jared Butler is one of those final 25. He's the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year, and despite the fact that he only has 6 points so far, the Baylor lead is now 44-27. Here's Manick, and he finally gets his first bucket of the night. That's a 3 from Brady Manick.
And a good heads-up pass by Kirk Queth.
There's Mitchell, picked off by Manick. Chance to gain a little of that momentum back for Oklahoma. And Reeves tried for the pocket pass, saved. Here's Queth, too strong. The rebound to Baylor. Flo Thamba. And they're going to get MaCio Teague for the offensive foul. Used a little forearm shiver on Oklahoma's defense.
And this is the kind of stuff that Austin Reeves is doing. Again, if you look at his three-point shooting percentage, it's a very limited view of the impact that Austin Reeves has. That is not a defensive play he made while he was at Wichita State. He is a complete basketball player now.
And when you do talk about his offensive numbers, Chris, the only one that can match it is Ohio U's Jay Preston in terms of leading your team in points, rebounds, assists, and at an impressive clip. Reeves is averaging 15.5 a game, 5 rebounds a game, nearly 5.5 assists per game. And people are talking about Jay Preston as an NBA draft pick.
I mean, Reeves had, look, he had 32 against TCU on December 6th. So, I mean, he could put it through, but he's, like you say, he's being asked to do a lot of things.
That one goes for Davion Harmon, his first bucket of the game. And now a 17-point halftime lead has been cut to 12. That floater, no. Thamba with the follow. Flo Thamba, the junior out of Kinshasa in the Congo. And there's Reeves with a tough shot along the baseline. So the good news for Lon Kruger, Brady Manick and Austin Reeves look like they are sharp to start this second half. Here's Mitchell, crossover, pull up, got it. Pretty move by Davion Mitchell.
A guy who is much more comfortable this year than he was last. A guy who worked on his shooting form, was not a very good perimeter shooter last year. His percentage is much better this year. Spent a lot of time working on his technique and form in the offseason.
Mitchell leading this Baylor team in assists and steals. And that's saying something with Jared Butler, one of your running mates. Inside, Queth. And another dunk for Kirk Queth, who has 9. That ball tapped away by Harmon out of bounds. We've got a timeout on the floor. When we come back, we'll talk about the bear up there. Jared Butler's done a lot in his star-studded Baylor career, but one thing he just accomplished for the first time. Well, Spatola, Jared Butler is a preseason All-American for a number of reasons. He's what they call a 3-level scorer. He could take it to the cup, he could shoot it from outside, and of course, he knows how to dish it to his teammates. He can play some fierce defense as well. He is an All-American in every sense of the word. But up to this point, he has never dunked in a basketball game until now against Iowa State, their last time out. Jared Butler, everybody's All-American, finally got his first collegiate dunk.
That's a big day. I mean, that is a big, big day. Good for him. He will always be able to say he dunked in a game.
He almost had a dunk earlier this season against Washington. Actually tried to take it up against a 7-footer on the Huskies team and missed it back rim. So everybody on that Baylor team was up in arms in Hilton Coliseum when Jared Butler threw that dunk down in their last game, a win against the Cyclones 76-75 or 65. Victor E. Walker, 0 in crimson. Gives it up to Reeves for 3, short. And the rebound to Vital. That's Mark Vital's 8th rebound tonight. Teague, catch and release, no. And Reeves clears on the weak side. Oklahoma still within shouting distance, a puncher's chance, Chris. Quick release from Gibson, way off the mark. He might be pressing a little bit, playing back in his old hometown of Waco, Texas. Went to University High School, just 4 miles away from the Baylor campus. Decided to start his college career at North Texas in Denton. And then this year, transferred to Norman, Oklahoma to play for Lon Kruger.
Well, I'm sure that's playing into it. Going home is there's always added pressure in that game. The other thing too, Rich, for shooters, you come off the game that he had the other day against West Virginia. going for 29, 8 threes in that game. There is a letdown. The psychology of sport is undefeated. And in particular, shooters, you have a game like he had, there is going to be a letdown.
Look at Matt Meyer, his first bucket of the second half, and it's a pretty one. He has 11. Reeves with the pull-up, knocks it down. And just like that, Austin Reeves has 3 early buckets in the second half, 14 on the game. Butler going one-on-one. Nice spin move from Jared Butler, but he doesn't cash it in. Tough take and an and-one opportunity for Oklahoma. Alondes Williams with the and-one.
What a tough finish. And Meyer there he's on that strong, covering that strong side corner, so he doesn't want to leave it. He just kind of reaches that arm in, and what a finish through contact by Williams. Chance to cut it to single digits here.
And does with the three-point play. Alondes Williams with 7, and with 12:49 to go, Oklahoma only down 9 after trailing by 17 at the half. High hedge by Manick. There's Flagler with the nice take on the left side.
How about their bench tonight? That is one of the big differences between Baylor last year and this year. Their bench is so much more productive. They are a much deeper team.
Manick from Reeves. Brady Manick with 5. Unfortunately for Lon Kruger, you can't trade punches now with Baylor after you trailed by 17, but the Oklahoma offense looking a lot sharper in the second half. Meyer too strong, another rebound for Reeves. Reeves has 6 rebounds to go along with 14 points.
Not a good shot.
Meyer, hesitation move, and Matthew Meyer will go to the line and shoot 2 when we return. 11:40 to go. Baylor, second in the nation, undefeated, up 9.
Rich Hollenberg.
KC, flattery gets you everywhere. Matt Meyer at the line shooting 2. He makes the first to give him a dozen. Alongside Chris Spatola, Rich Hollenberg, the Waco Baylor Bears inside the Ferrell Center, their first Big 12 home game of the season. They won road games at Kansas State and at Iowa State, and now they're bidding to go 3-0 in conference play in a conference that has had its fair share of road upsets so far this season. Here's Meyer. Man, that one goes out of bounds. It's going to stay Baylor basketball.
You know, shot selection so big for Oklahoma, but before the break, Austin Reeves just did not take a good shot from 3, and that shot by Brady Manick, you end up bailing Baylor out. Like, they're going to make you work offensively. You've got to try to make them work defensively as well, and you can get a better shot than that last one there from Brady Manick.
11:10 to go. Meyer gets fouled again. Well, Big 12 now on ESPN Plus, a must-have for Big 12 fans. Next week, the Sooners hosting TCU Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern. And at 8 Eastern, number 6 Kansas takes on Oklahoma State. The next one for the Bears will be Saturday, February 6th against the Horned Frogs. Sign up today at ESPNplus.com/Big 12 now. We've got Oklahoma State Saturday, Chris Spatola. What do you think about Cade Cunningham so far?
I think he's had a really big-time freshman year. Still learning how, to score at this level consistently, particularly from the perimeter. The shot windows close a lot more quickly at this level, but my goodness, he is a physical talent. Having a really good year.
A couple of heartbreaking losses in Big 12 play by Oklahoma State. 2 one-point losses. They're 1-3 in conference play. There's back-to-back threes. First by Teague, then by Mitchell.
Davion Mitchell was a sub-33% three-point shooter at Auburn, and then also last year here at Baylor. A much improved shooter coming into this season.
That's an understatement. Shooting 50% from three coming into this game. His last three was his first of the night, and it gives Baylor a 17-point lead with 10 minutes to go. That's exactly what their lead was when they went into the break.
And this is what he does. I mean, this was his reputation last year. He was on the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year watch list. He is outstanding on the ball. And that's what he does best. I mean, he is a ball hawk, and I actually think he has made Jared Butler and MaCio Teague better. Those guys have raised their defensive level to match the intensity that Mitchell plays with.
Davion Mitchell has 6 or more assists in 7 of the 9 Baylor games. Has 3 dimes tonight. Ball in his hands now. Gives it up to Flagler. And Flagler with a tough 2.
Flagler coming out of that COVID protocol looked a little bit rusty in that game against Iowa State, certainly on the offensive end. He has looked much more comfortable tonight.
So let's play the opposite side of things now with a 19-point lead, largest of the game for Baylor. Chris, what would you do scheme-wise to try to beat the Baylor Bears?
Well, the problem is Baylor doesn't let you run your stuff. There's Adam Flagler there. I mean, they just don't let you run your stuff. And here's on the other end. He is a mid-range savant. He's always on balance. He's so good with that shot fake, getting to his spot in the mid-range and knocking it down. But to answer your question, Rich, if you're Oklahoma, you've got to be able to get the ball to the paint. There's been a lot of perimeter shots that they've settled for because they haven't been able to run their stuff. So some of these guys got to start putting it on the floor, get it up on the backboard, allow Kirkweth the opportunity to maybe collect some offensive rebounds, but they got to start putting some pressure with the dribble on Baylor.
And even though it hasn't quite been the night that Lon Kruger has hoped, with his team down 19 and 9 minutes to go, I still think that there is a major upside. The ceiling is high for this Oklahoma team. They're deep and they're old, and everything that I keep hearing from experts like yourself, Chris, is the older teams are going to be the more successful teams this year.
They just need to get a lot of guys doing it. Big time shot there by Harmon. They got to get a lot of guys doing it together. That's why Davion Harmon, he's got to be that third scorer. Reeves has to give it to you every night. Manick has to be there. Gibson, he gives you 29 against West Virginia. He's been largely quiet tonight. They are a sum of the whole parts kind of team. And they just haven't tonight gotten a lot of guys doing it together.
And Baylor's defense has a tendency to make offenses look ugly no matter how good they are. Kip Kissinger says that's going to be a Baylor turnover. If there's one criticism of Baylor that Scott Drew might have, it's the propensity for turnovers. That was their 12th tonight. Pretty much everything else has gone Baylor's way, though. Catch and shoot. Flagler not this time. There's Harkless. And Elijah Harkless gets the foul on Baylor. We have a timeout on the floor, 7:58 to go. 17-point Baylor Bears lead. The score from the Ferrell Center on the campus of Baylor University. The #2 Baylor Bears leading Oklahoma 62-45. All right, hold them up. Who do you got? Crimson Tide or Buckeyes, Spatola?
Roll Tide, baby. Roll Tide, Rich Hollenberg. Speed kill. Oh, my gosh. You would pick a team that's only played 7 games this year. You would, Rich.
I'll tell you what. I watched that semifinal game and Justin Fields and company, and I feel like they have a Vince Young, Texas Longhorns feel about them going up against USC a few years back in one of the greatest college football games ever. I just feel like karma is on the side of Ohio State.
Did you see that Alabama offense? Rich, did you see what that offense is capable of?
Listen, there's no denying how good they are. Their offense is as prolific as Matt Meyer's been tonight so far. He's got a new season high.
I'll tell you what, they made Notre Dame, Alabama made Notre Dame look like a bunch of schoolyard kids. I mean, it was receivers running wide open. You know me, I'm a big believer in Darwinism, all right? Bigger, faster, stronger, but mostly faster is going to dominate. That Ohio State defense, not nearly what it was last year, Rich.
No, I agree, but the one thing I will tell you is I think Ohio State's offense is almost as good as Alabama's offense, and I think defensively, maybe Alabama might not be as strong or dominant as they have been in championship years past. I think that plus the emotional factor of what Justin Fields did in that game against Clemson, I think that carries the day on Monday, January 11th. So now that we have a split decision, Spatola, that means that everyone still has to watch the game. If we pick the same team, then no one would have watched the national championship. But now you could still tune in. Nice feed from Manick to Harkless, his first 2 of the night. And just like so many people around college football are saying, thank goodness we're even at the point where we're talking about a national championship game. Yeah. And to that end, what are your thoughts about the NCAA announcing that the March Madness event will be held essentially in one location in Indianapolis?
I think it's great. You know, we're not at a place, as Manick buries one from deep there, we're not at a place where we should be flying teams to 14 different sites around the country. I think it was forward thinking. Part of my problem is, for some reason, college basketball seemed like it was caught off guard at the beginning of this season. So at least they're being forward thinking about it.
We got a timeout on the floor. Baylor looking to close out against Oklahoma. Well, the Drew family is a basketball family if there ever was one. The patriarch, Homer Drew, 371 career wins as a Division I coach. Of course, his son, Bryce Drew, the author of that heroic shot in the NCAA tournament for Valpo against Ole Miss back in the 90s. And now Scott Drew has taken the mantle with 371 coaching wins in Division I on his own. What does that mean? It means he and his pop are tied with 371 wins. A win tonight, Chris, and he told us it would give him bragging rights around the holidays.
Yes, it would. Good for him. Good for him. You know, the thing I love about Scott Drew, and you mentioned the time he's been here and all the success, I love that he's reinvented. I mean, he's reinvented his system, his style, the way he coaches. You know, to survive at this level for this long, you have to adapt. You have to figure out new ways to do it. The transfer market, he has really figured that out. Brought in guys who have made this program better. Nothing but the utmost respect for Scott Drew and the job he's done.
Yeah, and on the floor, X's and O's wise. I mean, they used to be known as a 1-3-1 zone defense team. Yeah. Now they're playing a lot of man. Offensively, they used to pound the ball inside. Now they're shooting a lot of threes. Great adaptability by Scott Drew.
Well, and nothing was more illustrative of that, Rich, than when Tristan Clark went down a couple years ago. I mean, they reinvented themselves when he went down in season and became a much better team as a result. And then that carried over to last season, which is carried over to this season.
Here's Butler. It's been a quiet night for Jared Butler, but they haven't really needed him everyone else chipping in. Thamba can't get the follow to go. And by the way, Chris, Homer Drew on line 1 said, just for the record, he has 641 career coaching wins because he spent 11 seasons at Bethel College and picked up another couple hundred over there, too. That one doesn't go. Meyer the rebound. Been a good night for Matthew Meyer. 16 points, 7 rebounds for the junior. Coming up on 3.5 to go. The hesitation, the lob, and that stops the clock at 3:28. Baylor looking to close out Oklahoma up 17 at home. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Phillips 66, proud sponsor of Big 12 basketball. The number 2 Baylor Bears, 3 minutes, 28 seconds away from moving to 10-0 on this season. A reminder, Friday, the Clippers and Warriors highlighting our NBA doubleheader on ESPN. Sunday at 1 p.m., it's the Titans-Ravens wild card game. And on Monday, Ohio State, Alabama, the College Football National Championship presented by AT&T. Going back to that NFL wildcard game, there's Marquise Hollywood Brown. He of the 8 touchdowns and nearly 800 receiving yards from Lamar Jackson this year. And of course, he being an Oklahoma alum, thought we'd touch on that. A little bit of positivity for the Sooners.
You got to have a hell of a game to be nicknamed Hollywood. That is some self-styling right there.
How about that wildcard game? You got Derrick Henry for the Titans, Heisman winner. You got Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, Heisman winner. Again, just good to see that the NFL playoffs are upon us. 3 minutes to go. Won't get any easier for the Oklahoma Sooners. They're going to stay on the road and go to Allen Fieldhouse to take on Kansas next. As for Baylor, they're on the road as well. Their 3rd road game in the Big 12 in their first 4. They're taking on Jamie Dixon's TCU Horned Frogs.
Well, one thing you don't have to deal with in Allen Fieldhouse are the fans, which is a start. Of course, you still have to play Kansas.
Yeah, and that's a big part. The lack of fans certainly contributing majorly to the fact that road teams in the Big 12 this year, Chris, are 12-6. And when you compare that to last year's numbers, road teams with just a .356 winning percentage, that's saying something. That shows you how valuable a fan base could be.
Well, obviously the adrenaline that fans provide to players and the impact that can have. The other thing I'd throw in is officiating. I mean, these officials are humans. They are affected by home crowds, even though they'll tell you they aren't. So I don't know if that's contributing to 12-6 in the Big 12 to this point, but there are factors at play with no fans in these buildings.
No doubt.
Or limited fans.
About 2,300 fans inside the Farrell Center have watched their number 2 Baylor Bears dominate Oklahoma from the opening tip. They sprinted out to a 16-2 lead and really never looked back. Baylor up 72-57 now with under a minute and a half to go.
You mentioned the start, Rich. Sometimes you lose these games early. And in this game, you know, to get down 16-2 to this Baylor team, that was from the first minute of this game, that was going to be almost an insurmountable climb for Oklahoma.
Mitchell had it pinned by Quet. They'll count the bucket. Well, we showed you this moments ago. Now Scott Drew on the precipice of 372 wins as a Division I coach. That means he will be passing dear old dad, who has 371 in his 22 seasons as Valpo's head coach. And I'm sure Homer's watching right now, and I'm sure no one's happier for Scott Drew than Homer Drew.
Basketball royalty, the Drew family.
No doubt. Bryce spent a year with us at ESPN. Now he's the head coach at Grand Canyon, taking over the Antelopes program, who are 4-3 on the year.
Is that what they are, the Antelopes?
The Lopes, baby.
Are they indigenous to the to the Phoenix area? An antelope. Who knew that could be a mascot?
So now we're under a minute to go. It's academic at this point, and it will be another double-digit win for the Baylor Bears. The train just keeps on rolling for the boys in Waco. They'll improve to 10-0 on the year, 3-0 in conference play. And despite the fact that Jared Butler did not have a terrific offensive night, ending the night with just 6 points, Adam Flagler chipped in with 15, MaCio Teague had 17, and Matthew Meyer had a season high with 16. And that was more than enough for Scott Drew and the Baylor Bears to handle the Oklahoma Sooners tonight. Well, a reminder that tomorrow night on ESPN we'll be out west for some college basketball doubleheader action. #1 Gonzaga taking on BYU at 8:30, and then it's UCLA and Arizona State at 10:30 following that up. If we had to play a fantasy game right now between Gonzaga and Baylor, who wins?
I think Gonzaga wins. And I think here's the one issue if you're Scott Drew after this game tonight and the Iowa State game the other day. You cannot turn the ball over at the clip that Baylor has been turning it over against Gonzaga. Your margin for error against that team, because they are so good offensively, is very small. Ooh. It's the loudest the guy has dunked in a 15-point game, but I'll tell you what, it was a pretty nice one.
Well, that'll put a bow on this one. A 15-point win for the Baylor Bears, who prove once again that they are more than deserving of their #2 ranking in the country. Scott Drew picking up win number 372 in his 18 years as a Baylor head coach, 19 overall. So that'll do it for the Ferrell Center in Waco, Texas. Baylor holds off Oklahoma 76-61. For everybody here at ESPN, including my broadcast partner, Chris Patola, producer Eric Posman, director Jimmy Lee Starling. I'm Rich Hollenberg. Now it's time for SportsCenter.